Mr. Barnes, good morning. How are you? How was your weekend? Did you have a good time? How's your wife doing? I haven't heard you talk about her for a while. How most people speak to their superiors in the workplace or their boss is disgusting. And the problem is when you're making these errors, what you're telling your boss when you talk to them the way that I just demonstrated is, I am so far underneath you. I put your social value so much higher than mine. And as we all know, the most important thing is how you view yourself. I view myself so much lower. Don't be mad at me. Be nice to me. Throw a boy a bone. That's what you're communicating. You think dudes like that get promoted? No. People think, it makes me actually very sad because people are trying to do the best they can, right? They're trying to act in a way that they think is going to get their boss to number one, like them, and number two, not anger them. And they think that that is what's going to get them promoted. Look around with a very unbiased eye around your company, and if you work for a big company, and look at the people who have been promoted the most quickly. Okay, they're not people who speak to their boss like there's some deity from up above. In fact, I would be willing to guess that every once in a while, they use a bit of a tone that may surprise you, that may be considered a little bit too aggressive for speaking to the superior. But what are they communicating? I'm on your level. They're not being rude. It seems rude to most people, and you can definitely go too far and be rude, but they're not being rude. They're using what's called a neutral tonality. All that's communicating is we're on the same playing field. I have something to offer. I'm not gonna walk on eggshells because I'm around you, because I know I have value. Worst case scenario, I'm gonna be okay. You wanna can me? That's fine. I'm gonna end up someone else on my feet. I know my value here. And you hear the tone that I present that with. Hey, Mr. Barnes, how was your weekend? I heard you were going out to Austin last weekend. Did you have a good time? Did you take your wife with you? Much different than, Mr. Barnes, did you have a good weekend? Did you take your wife with you? Same line, only thing that's different is the tonality. Now, tonality is something you really need to understand. I actually have a program coaching that more deeply if you're interested. But what you need to do is understand the way that you are actually sounding to the other person. And it can be a small tweak. You know, that little raise in octave from Mr. Barnes, how was your weekend? To Mr. Barnes, how was your weekend? If you look at that from a wave file, it's a slight difference. But when it comes to what it's communicating, it's polarly opposite. So what I would ask you to do is, in your mind, this may sound kind of goofy, but there's a lot of value in this. In your mind, imagine that you're speaking to your boss or your superior or someone that you feel like you may be using a bit of a weak tonality with, and record your voice in an imaginary situation. So how would you say hello to Mr. Barnes? And then listen to that audio and see how you really sound and try to be unbiased. And if you really want to take it to the next level, have somebody else listen to it and say, in your mind, how do you feel like the person I'm talking to is positioned socially compared to me? How much social value do they have? How confident am I around that person? And get their honest opinion. And most likely, I would be willing to say 90% of the time, you're gonna be using a much more supplicative tonality than you think, a much more like me, don't hate me, don't be mad at me, you're so much higher than me. And the sad thing is that you're telling this person to treat you that way, even if they respect you. Even if they're like, man, Barron's got a lot of great ideas, he's got a high intelligence, he's really ambitious. And then you come to him, hey, Mr. Barnes, how was your weekend? His subconscious is saying, Barron maybe isn't that confident, you know? We know more about ourselves than anyone else. So Barron knows in this company, he knows he's smart, he knows he's got these things going for him. Why does he feel like he has to talk to me that way? I'm not really worried about it, but definitely I'm not gonna think about him the way I did before. That's all going on subconsciously in their mind. So be very aware of yours and mine and any human's tendency to speak with a supplicative tone when we're around people who are of higher status to us, and realize it's doing us a detriment, and by a detriment, putting a dent in that mint, And if you can correct that, you're going to be one of the few people, remembering that 90% of people do speak like that to authorities. You're going to be one of the few people that doesn't, and their subconscious can be like, man, that Barron's confident. He does seem pretty smart. He's the kind of guy who could rise and could show leadership. He's kind of a natural leader. I'm not sure why. It's that small change in tone. If you liked the video, click like. If you hated it, click the thumbs down. If you haven't joined the Charisma Matrix, well, do so. I'm coming out with hot content twice a week at this point. I may do a little bit more in the future if I can get to it. You can click right here to join, and I'll talk to you soon.